With proper preventive maintenance, your Horton fan clutch will last the life of your truck. Preventive maintenance procedures should be performed every 25,000 miles on your Horton fan clutch. The HTS fan clutch is Horton's new high-torque model. The HTS is an S-type clutch with an oversized piston and friction disc, allowing it to accommodate higher torque or horsepower requirements. To make sure your Horton fan clutch is operating properly and to alert you to parts replacement and overhaul, first turn the engine off and let it cool to below the thermal switch temperature. Check that all electrical connections are secure. Ignition wires, terminals on the thermal switch, and the two connectors on the three-way valve. Check to see that your fan clutch engages and disengages properly. Turn the key to the on position, supplying current to the thermal switch. Vehicle air pressure should be a minimum of 90 psi. With a normally open valve, disconnect the ground wire to the thermal switch. This will de-energize the solenoid and engage the fan clutch. Repeat to see if the fan clutch is engaging and disengaging. With a normally closed valve, a jumper wire across the two thermal switch settings should cause the fan clutch to engage and disengage. Repeat this 3 times. With the fan disengaged, rotate to see if there is any roughness in the sheave bearings. Check the lining and replace it if it's worn to 1/16 of an inch or less. Now check for air leaks. Be sure air pressure is up to at least 90 psi and the fan clutch is engaged with the engine off. Air leaks within the clutch body can be checked by placing a bubble solution over the pilot fan bleed hole. If a bubble appears, replace the air cartridge and face seal. A bubble forming on the separation between the air chamber and piston friction disc, or the fail-safe holes on the friction disc, requires replacement of both O-rings, items 16 and 26. If the bubble solution method is impractical, simply listen and feel for air leaks. If no air leaks are found and there are no rough spots in the bearings, you have completed the 25,000-mile preventive maintenance procedure. Parts replacement and overhaul is necessary if the bearings are rough or the lining is worn to 1/16 of an inch. Parts replaced in this procedure include the cartridge assembly, 2 O-rings, 8 cap screws and lock washers, friction disc and screws, bearings, tab lock washer, snap ring, U-cup, and face seal. Remove the fan clutch and clamp it in a vise. Remove the 8 socket head cap screws. Use 90 psi of air pressure to assist in sliding the air chamber off. Remove the cartridge assembly by using a number 1 snap ring pliers. Slide the cartridge assembly out and remove the U-cup located at the bottom of the shaft behind the cartridge assembly. Tap the lock washer tab free from the adjusting nut and remove the adjusting nut. Horton spanner socket number 11861 must be used for this procedure. Remove the piston friction disc and examine it for heat checking that may have been caused by air leaks or low air pressure. Replace the friction lining material if necessary. Now remove the journal spacer from the shaft and slide the pulley assembly off the shaft. It is absolutely essential to replace all worn parts during this overhaul procedure. Remove pulley bearings by pressing them out towards the back of the pulley. Before replacing the bearing with Horton parts, be sure that the inner seals have been removed. Bearings must be packed using chevron SRI number 2, never more than half full. The pulley bearings must be pressed in so that the V in the outer surface points downward towards the pulley. Slide the pulley and bearing assembly onto the shaft. Reinstall the journal spacer with the lip facing up. If hub bearings need replacing, drive them out in opposite directions by moving the inner spacer to one side and tapping with a drift punch on the inner race of the lower bearings. Press new bearings into the hub. If the piston or splines are worn, replace as a whole unit with Horton part number 10025. When replacing the friction disc, make sure to line up the lockup holes. Replace the piston assembly back onto the shaft. Torque the adjusting nut to 150 foot-pounds. Bend one tab of the lock washer into the keyway of the adjusting nut. Lightly grease the U-cup with Parker O-Lube, Horton part number 13220. Insert the U-cup into the shaft, making sure the open end faces down. Insert the replacement cartridge assembly, which includes the O-ring, into the shaft and install a new snap ring. Put a thin film of Parker O-ring lube on the top of the cartridge. Be sure the snap ring is seated correctly in the snap ring groove. Replace the two O-rings, one in the air chamber and the other on the piston friction disc. Lubricate them with Parker O-ring lube. To remove the face seal located in the air chamber, use a 5/8" hex socket. Replace with a new face seal. Apply Loctite 242 to the threads and torque to 15 foot-pounds. Reinstall the air chamber and use new cap screws torqued to 15 foot-pounds. This completes parts replacement and overhaul. spin all moving parts to see that they move smoothly and freely. Apply 90 psi air pressure to be sure no air leak is developed during reassembly of the fan clutch. The Horton parts replacement and overhaul, together with preventive maintenance, will assure you of reliable service from your Horton fan clutch. If the fan clutch fails on the road, you can easily troubleshoot it and get back to the shop using proven fail-safe backup procedures. In the event of an air leak or air loss on the road, the fan clutch cannot cool the engine because the fan clutch cannot operate without air pressure. Disconnect the air line at the fan clutch or solenoid, whichever is easier, and plug the line. Next, line up the holes in the pulley with the holes in the friction disc. Insert 2 Horton come-home bolts, 5/16 inch 18 NC socket head cap screws, and tighten these to a torque of 25 foot-pounds. All secure now for temporary running until the air leak is fixed. In case of an electrical malfunction on the road, or a normally closed system, disconnect the positive wire at the thermal switch and tape it. Now the clutch will remain engaged. Use the same procedure in case of thermal switch or 3-way valve failure. For a normally open system, use the fail-safe method using the 2 lockup bolts. Horton's quality service and reliable replacement parts, together with state-of-the-art equipment and the latest in manufacturing techniques, provide you with reliable and competitive products.
This is the Horton Diesel Temp MD fan clutch, the newest innovation in Horton Industries' line of energy-saving clutch products. We will be covering 3 maintenance procedures to show you how to keep your fan clutch in top operating condition. They are preventive maintenance, corrective maintenance, and emergency repair. Horton Industries recommends a routine maintenance check approximately every 25,000 miles to determine that your clutch is operating properly. Preventive maintenance is often the best way to eliminate potential problems. A good preventive maintenance plan should include the following. 1. Check all electric connections and wires for looseness or corrosion. 2. To test the clutch for proper engagement, the engine temperature must be below the temperature setting of the thermal switch. Turn the ignition on after building up air pressure. By disconnecting the power source, the clutch will engage. To check the clutch for disengagement, reconnect the wire and the clutch will disengage. 3. Check air lines, fittings, and the rotary air union for air leaks and looseness. The rotary air union should be replaced as a unit if an air leak is detected. 4. Check bearings for rough spots or excessive drag by rotating the fan when the clutch is disengaged. The fan should rotate smoothly and evenly. 5. Check for an air leak out of the opening on the perimeter between the piston and the air chamber by listening for escaping air. This would indicate a failure of the O-ring seal. 6. Check the thickness of the friction facing. If it's 1/4 of an inch or less, it should be replaced. If a problem is detected during preventive maintenance, the following steps show how to completely rebuild the MD fan clutch. These steps include the replacement of the O-ring seals, friction facing, drive sleeve assembly, and the rotary air union. First, disconnect the air line from the rotary air union. Remove the fan clutch and fan as one unit if possible. Remove the rotary air union at this point to prevent possible damage during the following steps. By removing the 3 machine screws and retaining washer, the rotary air union will come free. Next, remove the fan from the fan clutch. Now remove the 6 fan mounting cap screws. To replace the O-ring seal and the friction facing due to an air leak or excessive wear, first remove the piston and O-ring seal from the air chamber. Next, clean the groove in the air chamber. Lubricate the new O-ring seal with Parker O-ring lube and install. Remove the 6 screws, washers, and friction facing from the piston. Mount the new friction facing on the piston. Apply Loctite 620 to the 6 new screws and install with a torque of 20 inch-pounds. Reassemble the piston into the air chamber. If the drive sleeve assembly shows wear, replace it by removing the cap screw and disassembling the friction disc, mounting bracket, and drive sleeve assembly. Discard the worn drive sleeve assembly. Please note that the bearing is a permanent part of the drive sleeve assembly. Now, reassemble the mounting bracket, new drive sleeve assembly, friction disc, and cap screw. Apply Loctite 620 to the cap screw and install with a torque of 50 foot-pounds. Install 3 new return springs in the drive sleeve and then assemble with the piston air chamber assembly. Apply Loctite 242 to the 6 fan mounting cap screws and install with a torque of 230 inch-pounds. If the rotary air union requires replacement, lubricate the new O-ring seal with Parker O-ring lube and place it on the new rotary air union. Secure the assembly in place with the retaining washer and 3 machine screws and install with a torque of 17 inch-pounds. The Horton MD fan clutch is now completely reassembled and ready to install. In the unlikely event of a malfunction on the road, the Horton MD fan clutch will not leave you stranded. The clutch and controls are designed so that you can continue to safely operate your truck, saving you hassles on the road and expensive downtime. Service can be performed quickly and easily by the driver. This is done by making a temporary fix, but the problem should be corrected as soon as possible. Horton's network of over 700 distributors extends across the U.S. so that you'll never be far from parts or service. To operate in the event of an air loss or leak in the fan clutch, disconnect the air line to the fan clutch and plug the air line. Turn in the 3 set screws mounted in the air chamber assembly with a 5/32 inch Allen wrench until the clutch is locked up. If there is an electric short or thermal switch loss, disconnect the power source from the thermal switch to lock up the clutch. In the event of a solenoid valve loss, disconnect the power source from the thermal switch. Or run an air line directly from the air supply on the truck to the fan clutch. Make sure to turn off your ignition when installing the fan clutch and wiring components. If possible, mount the fan on the fan clutch, install 6 nuts and washers torqued to 120 inch-pounds. Then put this assembly into the shroud, being careful to avoid damaging the rotary air union. Mount the assembly on the fan drive pulley with grade 8 bolts torqued to 25 foot-pounds. Connect the air line into the solenoid valve fitting. For installation checkout, turn on the ignition and build up air pressure. Check the clutch for engagement by disconnecting the power source. Reconnect the power source to exhaust the air pressure and disengage the clutch. Simplicity and serviceability are the key words in describing Horton's new energy-saving MD fan clutch. A 2-phased maintenance program is all that's needed to maintain your clutch at peak operating efficiency. Preventive maintenance assures you of a proper functioning clutch, while corrective measures can easily and quickly cure any problem that may arise. Emergency repair keeps you on the road, eliminating costly downtime. Fewer moving parts and a lifetime bearing assure you of years of dependable and trouble-free service. During the time you operate your truck, the Horton MD fan clutch will save you time and money. Give Horton a call soon so that you can begin to change petrodollars into pocket dollars.